Hey guys, so I'm going to go through those two examples that we did and we started in class today. So that way you have a video of how to go through and find our increasing and decreasing intervals. And we will still keep working with these in upcoming classes as well. So I'm going to just name this number 1 and this one number 2. So the very first thing you want to do is find those max and min points, those turning points. So when we look at a graph, we want to see where is it changing directions, okay? So in this first one, I can see that happening in these 3 points. So at +1, right, I'm starting going down, I hit +1, then I change directions, I hit 3, I kind of slightly change, and then 4, we shoot back up again. So it's really important that we know those values, and we want to be aware of these kind of boundaries, we'll call them. So one is at 1, this one's at 3, and this one's at 4. So knowing those is going to help us with our intervals of which areas are decreasing and increasing. I always will have a negative infinity on the leftmost side and a positive infinity on the rightmost side. Okay, so with graph number 1, we are going to look at where is it increasing and then where is it decreasing. And the most easiest way to decipher that is to take your pen and actually trace it. And what motion is your pen going in? If your pen's moving down, then it's decreasing. If it's moving up, we're increasing. So in this first graph, I start up here at the top at this arrow, and I'm going to start going in a downward motion. So that tells me I'm decreasing on this portion. I then hit 1, right? Because I trace it all the way down to here. I hit 1, and now my pen starts moving in an upwards motion. That's an increasing section. Then at 3, I go down slightly, but still a downward motion. So that's a decreasing. And then at 4, I start going back up again, and I start increasing. Okay, so knowing that movement is half the battle. Once I decipher where I'm decreasing, where my pen's going down versus where it's going up and increasing, and you should notice there's always going to be a pattern to it. I'm not going to go decrease, decrease, decrease. I'm going to decrease, then increase, decrease, and increase, decrease, up and down that roller coaster. Okay, from there, it's a matter of writing those intervals. And by knowing these values that I wrote down here, it makes life so much easier. There's 2 ways we can write them. We can write them in interval notation, which I personally think is the easiest, and then inequality notation. And I'll show you both of those. In the first problem, I decreased first. So I decreased from negative infinity, that was the leftmost side, all the way to 1. That was my decreasing section. Okay. Then I increased, and I increased between 1 and 3. Again, interval notation is so easy because you're literally taking those boundary lines that I wrote down in the beginning and just grouping them together. Then I decreased again. I decreased from 3 to 4. So that's a second decreasing. And then I increased again. And again, from that one, it was 4 to positive infinity. That was from 4 all the way to the end. So this is your interval notation. The one last thing is you would put a U in between. That U means it's a union, it's a joint. You have 2 of them. It's just a fancy way of writing and, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So whenever you have more than one interval, make sure you put that U in between. So this would be your answers. I am increasing from 1 to 3 and 4 to positive infinity, and I'm decreasing from negative infinity to 1 and 3 to 4. Again, that's your interval notation. I personally think that's the easiest way to do it, but I will show you because you may see inequality format. Okay, so the inequality is using greater than or equal to's and less than or equals to's. So if I am between 2 sets of numbers, like I was between 1 and 3, right? That was the boundary here. The way you would write that is using compound inequalities. Your x is between 1 and 3. When it has your positive infinities or your negative infinities, that's just a simple greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. If it's positive, that's your greater than or equal to, because every number is bigger than 4. In the decreasing, your negative infinity, that's everything less than 1. And then again, I'm between 3 and 4, so that's a compound inequality. Okay, some people might find this way easier. And again, you can write U or and. It's just a fancy way of writing and. But you do need to pick one and kind of go with it. I will accept any option. However, I'm going to tend to go more towards the interval notation. Like I said, it's just easier not to worry about writing an X in there, but you do have both pieces. Okay. All right. So number 2, same thing. First thing I want to do is find those boundaries. Where are those turning points? So it turns at -1 and it turns at a +1. Okay. So those are my boundary numbers. Right? And then again, you'll always have a negative infinity on the leftmost side, positive infinity on the rightmost side. So from here, again, I take my pen, I start tracing, and it goes in a downward motion. So I'm starting with a decreasing, again, in this case. Then I hit -1, and my pen starts moving upwards. So I'm increasing in that section. I hit +1, and then my pen moves down. So I'm decreasing again. Okay. So when I go through and I write out this one, okay, so here's my increasing and my decreasing. So again, when I look at these intervals, I started decreasing at -infinity and I went to -1. Okay, so that's one part. Then I was increasing and I was increasing between these two. So that's between a -1 and a +1. And then I had a second section of decreasing, and that decreased from +1 to +infinity. Okay, and again, those would be my intervals in which I increased and my intervals in which I decreased. And for those of you who want to write it in your inequality format, it would be -1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 1. And then this would be x is less than or equal to -1 because it was on the negative infinity side. And x is greater than or equal to +1 because it's on your positive infinity side. Okay, so hopefully this helps you out a little bit. And again, we'll be continuing with this and kind of building upon it in the upcoming lessons.